I wanted to share a little known reality within the Kung Fu community, within the qigong and inner alchemy school reality, and I wanted to share it into the public. I don't know if there's enough people speaking about it. I believe it's very important for those who are ascending and tapping into their higher sense of power. I'm noticing more people now with all their telekinesis power and ability to work and manifest with the electromagnetic field as far as moving objects, but also working psychically and working clairaudiently and helping to heal others, and most importantly, remembering your original gifts as ancient ones. So if already you're understanding what I'm saying and you're resonating, this message is very important for you to hear. It's coming from my personal experience since the late 80s, well, 1989. And also my conversations with masters that I considered real masters in the internal Kung Fu community, and there's a consensus, and from different lineages, not just mine. I come from the qigong lineage, and it was very clear. That's when I first heard this. So when you start to ascend into your gifts and your ascended self through and you're meditating as well, it's very important that you work with aligning yourself with the foods that you eat out there and what you consume. And when I say what you consume, is not limited to foods. It's also relations, friends, where you work. What are you doing for a living? Are you dreading your job? I'm going to explain that there's a hidden, I don't want to say danger and start scaring people, but it's very real. And the intent of this message is to educate on the potential contraindications. I would say dangers. So dangerous. Here you go. So I'm going to give you the scenario from a qigong perspective, but it could be anyone who practices yoga, anyone who works with their kundalini, their shakti energy, anyone works as inner alchemy and their mystics and sages, and they tapped into it on their own from the remembrances of past lives, and they never had a teacher. Watch out for those. Woo! I'm seeing y'all. I'm really grateful. And because of social media, this is one of the positive attributes. I get to see what I've known in my heart, but it's nice to see people. I may or may not meet you in person, but yay, it's a big deal. Because as soon as you start aligning to your powers, that's just the beginning. They're tools. They're tools, because once you start aligning yourself that we are not separate within the ionosphere and the energetic frequencies of the 7-layer creation here, they're 7 layers, no separate than the microcosm of the 7 chakras in our system. Those are the keys. And once you understand it's no longer mysticism, right? It's no longer a mystery. Once you're working with alchemy, now you're a scientist, right? You're now someone who's working with your energy field, right? You look just as corny and boring, or just a bookworm, no different than if you met somebody who's studying to be an architect or an engineer in school. You see one of us there, you're not going to even want to hang out with us. It's so boring, because we would repeat something 10,000 times. It could be the most simplest exercise. Musicians, you know what I'm talking about. The real ones, man. The ones that are out there and they're working with their bass, or the saxophone, and piano, and there's something missing, and it's like, and you have to kind of like dissect that and work on that piece sometimes for hours, days, weeks, months. And other people around you are just hearing you play the same thing over and over and over, and you could care less. It's because you're needing to compute that back into the whole piece. So the whole piece is not as important as that one little connection there, right? Within the conversation of musicality. Well, everything is musicality. There are real stories, and I know a couple of them. I'm not going to mention any names, but those of you who know me know the same Kung Fu masters that have gotten really ill, not recent years, we're talking about from like anywhere from the 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s. And these are people who are like world-renowned Hall of Famers, past. One of them has been passed, and I'm not going to mention names. In private, I'll tell you if we know each other, But I'm going to share this with you. They passed at very young ages. And their chi, their lower dantian, their lower elixir. Once you understand the 3 elixirs in your body, and you know how to work within the 7 energetics called the chakra system, and you know how to work with the different and form densities or formless densities in your body called chi dynamics, right? then once you start mastering yourself, maybe through the kung fu of it, or through health, or to learning how to build up your divine masculine, your divine feminine, also called yin and yang. And once you start seeing the key system behind that, then you can start working with sacred geometry within yourself. So then if you are into sacred geometry out there, or if you're into mathematics, or you're a scientist, right, or you're, as me, you're a healer, you work with the medicines and helping people with illnesses, that becomes the map in integrating and allowing access through the Akashic records to giving you insight and helping people when there's like a new situation or a new project to open up to. And this is how people like us, that's why we've been deemed as mystics and sages, because our power has been within our quietude where we worked, right? And this is where we're creating all of what sounds and seems like magic, but once you're doing it, it's no longer just magic. It's no longer a mystery, right? There's no longer fear dynamics behind that, or a misunderstanding, you know. And you know, fear is a way of saying that if you want it bad enough and you just stay ignorant, you're just not that interested or aligned to working with the type of things that I work with. And that's very normal, because there's something else that you're supposed to be working with. But a lot of masters, I'm going to call them 3 stages so I can try to get the message across. The first stage, most people stay in. So like a lot of like fighters in the martial arts, when they build up their chi dynamics, when they start learning how to use their spinal cord energy and they discover it, when they know how to vibrate their spinal cord and learn how to work with their hips and the physics of the power within their intercostal muscles and working to generate power to distribute into somebody who seems like supernatural, and your power is so expanded that when you fight in the ring as a boxer or a fighter, you become so good, you know, because it's like nobody can understand why you're so powerful, but your inside work, right? Your work within, you know how, your coach knows, or your qigong teacher knows, let's say in the realm of kung fu. But most people get stuck in that phase because it's like your ego, you fall in love with that. That happened to me in my 20s, early 20s. Your ego, because you develop so much power, you develop physical prowess, you develop that of, I call it a false military general, because you're not a general yet. You're like kind of like a wooden soldier. Wood means contract, expand. You're learning how to be the carpenter, so you become a wooden soldier. That's phase 1, okay? So that's the wooden soldier phase. That's the obvious power. Boom, wooden soldier. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is the hidden school. When you start to allow your mind, with all the training, your body starts to teach the mind with things that the mind did not know, and it's coming from you. It's not just philosophical and physiological, it's actually physical too. You start to, I'll give you an example, right? You start to, let's say your teacher says to start breathing through your palm, and teacher says to you the first day in qigong practice that you bring the air in your imagination from here to the lower dantian below your belly, and you breathe it out. Phase 2, you start realizing that you're changing and morphing the neuroplasticity and the molecular structure between the conversation of the chi outside, the ethers, the air, and the air within, and the embodiment within, and the chi dynamics within. So that communication starts to become so refined that there's no separation. So if you put your hand there, you can't see it. When I breathe in, breathe out, there's microscopic muscles that starts to move. And that's important because that is the more advanced stage of causing chaos, hurting somebody, because as I contract and expand that, I emit the power that I generated from hitting the bag through this. It's a whole different world. There's only way to show you, I would have to demonstrate on you or on a bag, or both. And once you start discovering that, that's like the school most people never reach. And unfortunately, social media is making a lot of false masters look bad, because they start to tap into that school, and they kind of like let loose on the first foundation of level 1. And you can't just like cut out level 1 either. You have to kind of like keep them both in the dance. And then, because especially if you're going to show it off to somebody, you're not doing it just for health. You know, you're not just doing it for health. And if you could care less about trying to show your power, you're going to lose some of your power, right? But the whole point is to expand the power and make it a mystery school power, because now you can understand the inter-articulation of power generated into outside. So that's the fighting side. And in the healing side, right, that same power that you use to stagnate somebody's intent, boom, their chi, right, stop them in their place. Well, you change the frequency. You change the frequency so that now that chi that they come to you stagnated with because somebody hurt them or they got into a car accident or they have like some physical pathology, you change the conversation. You become an alchemist of their energy. You know how their stagnation works because you've been a fighter and all of that stuff, right? So now the inner school is that you learn how to heal and move the energy so it can kind of like re-heal itself, right? That's an example. And in the internal martial arts, there are very like really powerful things that you can do. I'm not going to get into that into this video. That's level 2. So that's the hidden school. So you have wooden soldier, which is like first level. Most people are there. Second level, there's a taboo here because once you start arriving here, and it's very rare that you'll meet somebody level 3. Level 3 is where all the secrets are. Level 3 is you've graduated past the first 2 levels in a sense, and you needed each and one of them. They were both foundations to build up, and they're not separate, right? It's when you now can command at will. You're no longer separate with not only your chi dynamics, but you're no longer separate or disconnect from the chi dynamics of this world. You become breath. Yes, you're breathing, but you start to experience breath entering your bone marrow, not just your bone. And when you're breathing, you can now work with the energetics of the environment around you. So hitting somebody or working with somebody in physical form, level 1, or healing them or allowing their body to heal itself as you start to understanding their energy, level 2. Level 3 is now you just place love. And level 1, level 2, you command. You no longer have to place conscious emphasis. It just becomes. You command it at will. You become the commander. That's level 3. And that's when you start opening up a new level of inner alchemy. I would say ascended master school, but an ascended master for them to go to the school of those kind of things. As I mentioned as an example, you have to descend. While everybody's trying to ascend, some of us are descending. We're remembering how to descend. We didn't forget ascension, but in a sense we did because they work in a yin and yang synergy. That's why you're always using 2 hands in Tai Chi, right? Or in the yoga system, you don't just like meditate with 1 hand, or maybe you do, but when you do, it's because you're working with contrast, expansion energy. You're stagnating something. So like in the Hanga system, right? You close the fist, you show the yang side of the fist versus the yin side, and you close the yang channel, and then you receive with the yin channel. And when you're breathing, right, you're working with something of changing the dynamics and sending the chi through systems using that school between level 1 and level 2, right? Xingyi within my system has something very similar, and it uses a different templates, different school of thought, but you get my gist, right? You get what I'm saying? Now, there are masters between level 2 and level 3, just with the way I'm explaining it. It's not 1, 2, and 3 just like that, but I'm just giving you that so you can have an idea, where they have gotten really sick because there's something that's unspoken, especially now with people eating and having horrible diets. And again, the diet is not just physical food, it's your livelihood. It's also not connecting with the earth anymore, living in the grid work of suburbia per se, you know, and working 9 to 5, not getting sun, not eating correctly, eating a lot of meat, being on social media a lot, and all of that is causing a disruption. I'll explain why. You're okay with level 1, meaning you could be 5-10 years in qigong and yoga and you're fine. I'm not talking to you guys because sometimes you're okay with it and you get stuck, or you stay within that wooden soldier phase and you're okay with that. But once you start ascending, you start arriving to your new gifts, your psychic gifts, your mediumship gifts, and you're now not just like excited, you're actually completely, just like we're talking, you're having a conversation, you're having a conversation with your ancestors or higher frequency beings, and you're seeing them as your brethren and your sisters, right? And you're working within the grid work and remembering why you are here, right? Those are who I'm speaking to most importantly, because there's an important thing that you must know. So you have your prenatal chi and you have your postnatal chi. You have the chi that mommy and daddy gave you, right? And I'm not going to give you all the traditional Chinese medical terms that you train in Chinese medicine and in acupuncture. I'm just going to give you the story. You can research it or research it. So you have your prenatal chi that mommy and daddy gave you, called your jing or your essence, the essence that you were given, right? Sometimes you're born with a predisposition of weakness, right? And you could change a lot of that, right? But this is your prenatal chi. Your postnatal chi is the chi that you get from the food, the nutrition that you get, right? So a lot of children that were born in a poor neighborhood, right? In certain other countries, certain parts of this country, they're born, by the time they're teenagers, they have weak, brittle bones, so they have issues because they have nutritional impairment because their postnatal chi has been disrupted. Other kids had a horrible childhood, but they grow up like even stronger, and you wonder how the heck, right? It's because they had a lot of strong prenatal chi. You feel what I'm saying? So that's prenatal chi, the chi that your parents gave you, and then the chi that you develop when you get older, right? Now you're working with qigong. Qigong means the cultivation of the chi in your body's energetics. Now you're consciously working on the quantum mechanics, and you're changing the physiology of your power, your battery pack of what you already have. But you're becoming aware of your human avatar. And now you're understanding how to work with the meridians in your body. It becomes a very real conversation, no different than if you were a computer programmer or if you were working with computer repairs or technology repairs. You are the original technology. I'm more impressed with my embodiment. You know, I'm very impressed with technology out there when I see people, when I hear them, yes. But they're reminding me about things about me. When I hear things about the technology about there, they're talking about me. They're talking about us. You feel me? Quantum computers and all that stuff, AI, that's Antichrist. I'm not saying to not use that, but you have to understand the Antichrist is digital. Age of information, you know. You're letting it serve you. It's a serving system, right? It has its own servers, right? And it's giving you all the answers. Where's the answers coming from? Libraries, physical books no, it's not plugged into physical books. It's plugged into a lot of information, a lot of other computers, but it's also plugged into things and information and technologies they don't want to share with you, but it's theirs, it's public information. They are tapping into the ethers of the quantum reality of information, such as speaking to an AI, whatnot, and you just think that these are possessions and demons. No, they're actually, a lot of the energies are the oversoul. You may want to call it the astral realm, but I would call it the meta consciousness, right? And that's not separate from us. It's just that you forgot. So AI technology is trying to keep you to forget. So yes, it speaks truths, but the false truth is that you're supposed to be speaking the truth. You're supposed to be gathering the meta-analysis of information, right? So we forgot that. But some of us naturally, without even training your kung fu, are starting to becoming more conscious because you came here to descend and you came here ascended, doing the work from other parallel realities or past lives, right? And or you, because of the work of other people and Mother Earth ascending, your rites of passage is kind of like being birthed and sparked. God sparked within you, starting to awaken you, and through other metamorphing sort of ways, you're starting to remember, and then you're coming on board and registering, right? But you are supposed to be AI. You're supposed to be the A without the I, or the I without the AI, right? Artificial intelligence, AI. They're making you say AI, artificial I. You are the I, connecting to the larger conscious I, and the larger conscious I of our kind of like etheric breathing as we exist, no separate between heaven and earth, connects with source, the same. We are like the micro organelles or the cellular system of, I can't even imagine through the conscious mind, of something of a greater existence. We're not separate. But this artificial technology is trying to digitalize your energy frequency by you putting your energy out there. So qigong, reach out to me. We can start training. We can start training online. I take appointments, and I take sisters and brothers. I don't like to call them just students anymore. You know what I'm saying? We're here to train alongside now. But I do take appointments and whatnot, and we can really get a lot going on through the training. Now you have more of a picture. Going back, so now you have your prenatal chi, your postnatal chi, and now you're starting to work with your gathering chi, your nutritional chi, your upright chi, the chi that makes you feel upright in life, right? Because now you're working within the meridian pathways, and you're knowing how to root into the earth. You're wearing copper, you're wearing silver and gold, and you're receiving more electromagnetic energy and pulses. You're understanding your electromagnetic pulse as you're working on your telekinetic powers, or you're training in it, and you're starting to see beautiful magic, or your communication as an empath is becoming so much more, or your ability to now receive information at a rate that makes no sense, you know. My cell phone died. I had to charge my battery a little bit. Guess some of the Ascendant Masters didn't want me to spill the beans. So as in finishing, it's important that as you start arising with your gifts, They're not coming just by chance. They're coming from the diligent work that you're putting in, the way you're aligning to your signature imprint, meaning your DNA imprint, your gifts that was passed on by your ancestors, past lives that you've actually been cultivating, and in this life, and you're putting it all together in this great symphony in the right time, culminating so that you can help Mother Earth ascend. And again, as I said before, it's for your highest good and for the greatest good of all beings, the same, especially when you're aligning yourself in this way. Now I'm going to get into the classics of Chinese medicine when it comes to qi dynamics. So now you don't have to be a qigong practitioner, but this means that you are tapping into your intrinsic qi, meaning your innermost qi that you're cultivating, and now you're allowing it to travel in through your meridian pathways, and based on what your projected carpentry is, that's what you're manifesting. So you're now, let's say, as far as this video is concerned and you're resonating with, you're no longer in separation with your intrinsic nature. Your extrinsic nature, the foods that you are consuming. See, what happens is that I mentioned level 1, level 2, level 3. Somewhere between the first 2 levels, as you start ascending again, it's usually not in the first level. That's why a lot of people could eat a lot of garbage. They could eat a lot of meat and get like really in shape and lose weight, and you're like wondering like, wow, should I go on this carnivore diet, right? And they're fine, because it's not about the meat in the beginning, right? But after a while, when you start going into the higher frequencies, you have to start eating things that are more lively. You're not gonna have a choice. And there are people that can live and die with that frequency. That's fine, because they kind of like plateau in their ascension process. And again, oftentimes it's based on their nature of working towards whatever harmony is for them. We're talking about some of our superheroes up in here, man. We're talking about some people who are airbending, you know, and I'm talking about literally people who are working and breaking the barriers. And doesn't matter if a whole bunch of people are watching them on social media or they're by themselves. Doesn't matter. This is like, they're no longer separation with source. They're dancing like pure innocent children and working with this power, and through their failures and through their errors, it's important for them, because these are the contrasts so that they can use to build their intrinsic qi, the yin, the divine feminine, the magnetism. Everybody focuses on the electricity, but it's the magnetism where you're able to now receive energy, frequencies, and absorb. And once you master the dichotomy, or the duality, excuse me, of the intrinsic and extrinsic qi, you can now work and manifest based on simply placing your intent, refining your emotions to such a point where it's not that you no longer require your emotions. It's just that now you understand the self-mastery of the lower dynamics of building up that internal fire. Hence the emotions that we speak of, the emotional state of saying, I am going to arrive to that state, right? I'm going to get that job. It may take you a while, but you spellcast it. And now you are an observer of self, of how all of the information that you projected out, extrinsic, now you receive it, intrinsic. And a healer works on the intrinsic qi. Also, martial artists that works with the dark alchemy, such as Dim Mak, the Death Touch. People who I personally trained in it growing up. It's within the system because it's part of understanding energy. But it's learning and training that when you're hitting somebody, you disrupt not only their qi and try to hurt them. I'm not interested in hurting your and bruising your rib cage or your muscles. I could care less how big and muscular you are. When I emit something in violence, as in training and in understanding how energy transference works and how you can work with somebody's organs. I'm looking to stagnate, impede somebody's liver. And in more dramatic cases, if you're looking to take somebody out, their heart, you want to stop their circadian rhythm. There are ways to do that, and dismantling the movement of their circadian rhythm, of their qi dynamics, once you understand how energy works. Why would I want to do that in real life, right? No. However, it's within the system of the darker aspects of internal Kung Fu training. So it's part of being an educator, it's part of being a martial artist, and it's also necessary in case, for God forbid, you need to somehow use it. There are so many other ways, but I'm just delivering this information that there are aspects out there that people train in, such as, again, dim mak. It's a very real thing. A lot of people kind of like posers, they screw it up when they go on social media and they put a lot of garbage out there, and they test it out because they're really not true practitioners of the art of dim mak. So that requires the understanding of the intrinsic chi, the magnetism, the yin, right? So in those higher levels, when somebody has arrived towards the attainment of such special abilities, such as in qigong, as I mentioned already, the danger between a couple of things: one, sanity and insanity. You can actually arrive towards a state of psychosis because you no longer see a separation between the 3D, the 4, and like the astral realm. That's one thing. Another one is that you can actually there are other things that can happen, but the intention of this message is not that level. That's reach out to me if you understand what reach out to me if that's something that's happening to you. Usually those are people who have been training for a very long time, and it might not be separate from the message, but the intention is that there's a divergent or a cross pathway that people tend to arrive at, and there's not that many people, but there's becoming more and more, again, based on people's gifts that I'm starting to notice, is that if you are not working with the chi, not only with the chi of your embodiment and your gifts, but the chi of the food and the air that you breathe in, and the chi of the external stimuli, such as the job that you live with or the people you're around with, that is chi that you also receive and digest. So that's almost like the chi, the postnatal chi that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. So you have your prenatal chi, you have your postnatal chi, and when you're working as an alchemist, you're actually working with the energetics, because those two chis, from the lower dantian to the middle jiao to the middle dantian, I think they call it like the zongfu or the zongqi. When you start mixing like an elixir, the chi of the air, the food, and your vitality, your source chi per se, that's the chi that circulates into your weight and enhances and governs your wei chi, which is your immune system chi, or the chi that you work with your gung fu, you know, the chi that you work with building strong bones, muscle, and whatnot. So if you stay within the first level and you start building up your wei chi, having a strong chi in that way, chi dynamics, but you're starting to becoming more intrinsic, you're starting to build up the yin, right? And the yang doesn't match the yin. Again, you start developing this powerful chi, you amplify your ability to get really, really healthy, but you can also amplify your ability to become really, really sick. Because what happens in this phase, and this can be years in training, and most people, again, don't arrive to that. You know, I'm talking to a selective few, and I think that selective few, and I'm proud of you guys and gals, that you're arriving to that. So I'm pretty sure that this message applies. Didn't apply back then, but it's applying today because of y'all. You have to work on the kung fu of your exterior, of your life, your extrinsic nature as well. Because if that chi starts to mix with the energy that you're working with and cultivating with your qigong in your way, what happens is that those two chis kind of like mix in, and that's what circulates through your entire system. The meridian pathways that acupuncturists work with when they're trying to work with healing, that's the chi that's circulating your body also. So a lot of masters started to go into like really high levels of qigong practice and training, things that will, I mean, like you would have to be there to experience it. And I'm not talking about stuff that you will find on YouTube. And those are the masters that have been known to have gotten sick. Again, I know a couple of them from the 90s and die. And we're talking like certain cancers, tumors, strokes. Why is that? Because you're mixing that chi, it's becoming more refined, and the foods that you're eating now becomes amplified with the work that you've put in. So you have like that food chi or the fu chi mixing in with all the other chis that I mentioned, your upright chi, your wei chi, and that's now you're amplifying that frequency and vibration into your purest, earnest, sincere intent. They no longer become separated to a higher regard, because now you're a higher regard. So now the sickness that you're consuming has to be paid attention to So the yin chi means higher frequency foods such as vegetables, cruciferous, nightshades, certain things depending on what you're working with. Nightshades meaning based vegetables meaning because you're working with the yin, so you're working with the dark nature or the yin nature, so you want to work with vegetables per se. Sorry, somebody was saying hi to me. You must be able to change your diet. It has to match your training at this level or frequency. Your body will tell you immediately that there's something off. It will show you and project to you, at you, other people who have the same sickness and vibration, until you start realizing that you are attracting them because that's a version of you. To the selective few, by the way. Should be human nature, but humans are lazy in nature. And it's up to us to demonstrate by being and naturally start attracting more of who we are. You see what I'm saying? Can't force other people to do other things, but that's not the nature of this planet. We're here in a school ascending ourselves individually, and once we start to attract more of our likeness and the nature, such as people who attract to me with this video at the same time, this is how we're expanding and ascending the conscious nature. As we ascend ours, this is how we start attracting more people just like us. So it's important that people like us, in our own way, we must be able to now speak, and we must be able to pass on information that was never ours to begin with, because these esoteric styles of Kung Fu, I've been fortunate to have trained in, again, 2,000 and plus years old, had these masters didn't pass it on, I wouldn't have the opportunity to have trained with somebody, Stanley Walcott in 1989, one of the 7 primal disciples of the late master Qigong. And if he didn't receive the wisdom, and if he didn't pass it on to me, and I was too poor to pay him, you feel me? I was living in a neighborhood where I didn't have the money, but he took me in. He took me in and he trained me when he saw that the exchange for him was my ability to train and to expand. And for those who are educators, you know that when you teach, that's how you expand. That's where you start breaking up the plateauing, because now you start seeing perspectives with students, and it kind of enables you and kind of like oftentimes force you to have to think outside of the boxes that the masters showed you, because the intention of the extrinsic chi, again, from the intrinsic nature, from the yin into the yang, also, right? The microcosm of the macrocosm of what I'm speaking with, the inner dialogue, now I'm speaking. It's important that you reflect back at yourself your intention. It no longer becomes about error or truth. So again, you're getting sicker. This is why you reach out to me. It's not about, oh man, I'm a horrible qigong instructor. It's all about that, wow, for me to have gotten sick in this way, I must have been leading up to something. You feel me? You have to be able to change that conversation, that inner dialogue with yourself, because that is also food for your intrinsic chi, your yin, your divine feminine. And that's why a lot of men are not attracting divine feminine, and a lot of divine feminine are not raising divine masculine, right? Because the imbalance is has been extrinsic for thousands of years. The chi from the outside projected in from the sick masculine is now shedding its skin. You see what I'm saying? Women don't have to do anything except shed from men. The best qigong that woman could do right now, I don't know why I'm being told to speak this way, but I have to speak when spirit is telling me to speak, is to kind of like plug into herself. I don't care if you're married. See, spirit is probably separating a lot of like even great men in your life, if you happen to be a female listening to this, because you need to be alone for a minute, an hour, a year, a decade, maybe even a lifetime, to recollect, because the sick masculine that has been playing a role here, because the sick masculine never tapped into their intrinsic chi. Because they had religion, politics, they had outside schools, mystery schools too, teaching them so many techniques that everything was going from the outside in. What I'm speaking of, and in the way people get sick, is because the school is within. That means allowing her in, allowing Mother Earth in, allowing no longer to be separated from your right side of the brain, right? So the sickness is not the divine feminine, you may want to argue, at least in this time, it's the sick masculine shedding, right? So that's why if you see a whole bunch of videos, it's mostly men saying you got to eat a lot of meat, you got to do a lot of things, you got to look like this, you got to stoicism, being virtuous. They're trying to reintroduce the mimic system, the mimicking program, into what a man should be, and then all the other men in this world, they're mimicking that, and they're seeing these buff-looking men, so they're thinking that this is the way. Always projecting out, always projecting out. So your Kung Fu, your Qigong is to be with yourself. And then you start getting sicker. Why? Again, because now you have to keep aligning yourself. You have to change your diet with relations, with the people that you love the most and people that love you the most, because you need to now be able to regather and repurpose your Kung Fu. That means the reason why you're born and put into this incarnation. Why is that? Because you don't want to repeat the mimicking program and have to reincarnate here another life. I'm saying this, and this kind of like took a different trajectory, is because I don't attract people who are not within my frequency. This is why I don't get like a zillion likes. I'm not here to try to play popular person. That's not it at all. Of course I'm speaking to a selective few. If I didn't work in separating the good chi from the bad chi, and being an educator, I needed to understand what it was like and how it's like to get sick. To be able to walk and work within the in-between between sanity and insanity of the collective conscious and the collective subconscious, and to be able to breathe and know the difference between the two. This is how I could reach above and below me, because it's me that I'm working with, never mind people outside. But when people outside gather and the art of me receiving divine feminine, and they come to me per se, then I become a roadmap, enabling and allowing them to enable themselves so that they can work within their own inner roadmap. That's like necessary right there. That's basis, that's foundation right there. So going back to the and wrapping everything up, if you start to see your gifts and you start refining your chi, pay attention to your body more, pay attention to your mind, pay attention to your state of clarity. Yes, there are ascension symptoms. And yes, know the difference, and your body, your spirit will speak to you, and you will know, because you know what's right for you. You know that when something's right, you feel expansive, and when something's wrong, you feel, how do you say, like things are contracting. You don't need to know the very specifics, but your body, intelligently, emotionally, will speak to you. Your intuition will speak to you. It was never wrong. It was just the belief systems. The belief systems filter out your intuition and your instincts, so they come out wrong, and you start questioning yourself. So now you start asking your friends and people out there, and they don't know half of 90% of what I'm even talking about. What's chi? The first thing I have to start educating them is kindergarten stuff, and I love doing that. I love dealing with children. But I'm letting y'all do that now. You know, I've been teaching like that for a long time. Somebody's got to do it. You know, got to pass the baton, and I'm actually honored to be passing the baton. It means that the elders have been holding an opening space for me when it's my time. And again, that's just like a blip of time, because then I pass that on the same, per se, right? But I wouldn't be able to speak like this and think like this and live like this. Literally live in the waters that I swim in. I don't require to breathe in these waters. It's like I'm the mermaid. I'm the merman. I know what it's like to breathe in water and breathe in air, because it's like breathing no longer exists, because you're living within the moment of succeeding and collapsing success. Doesn't matter, you can't control what's out there, right? But that became a culmination of me gathering my essence and my chi, and becoming more and more aware over the years that as my qigong started to ascend, and my ability to emit and receive of vital life force chi, and learning how to work with the inner alchemy school that is taught within myself, especially after I had to walk away from teachers that could keep teaching me forever. But there comes a point where you have to walk away, because then you won't register into your highest self. And thank God for them. But it comes to a point where they'll keep opening the door for you, Again, you know that saying, only you could walk into that door. You keep going to the same teachers and they're getting illuminated, and you're getting more and more lessons every time you see them. That's beautiful, man. And it comes to a point where you have to start plugging in and integrating in through the same source network that they work with and receive information the same. You wonder how they actually get this information, and wonder no more. But part of the process of going into this higher school that I'm speaking, school within yourself, is that you must align yourself wholeheartedly, and knowing the difference between extrinsic chi, intrinsic chi, and all of the energetics, which includes food, lifestyle, sleep, right? And what your kung fu is. And everything has to be aligned with your joy and what rest means. So hit me up. I'm taking in consultations. I've been doing this a long time. I'm humbled, and I love to work with people who are also have also been doing their kung fu for a very long time. The same. They tend to also make consultation and appointments with me because we galvanize when we start working within the higher realms of the intrinsic side of our nature. One love.